Hi everybody, my name is Josh Barnett. Welcome to the first DVD in my series on catch wrestling. This is an introductory series, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of techniques, moves, and certainly philosophies behind what we do as a catch wrestler as opposed to some of the other more well-known submission arts. The things that we're going to teach are going to be available and useful to any type of wrestler or submission artist master. It can also be transferred over to MMA and is great for just physical well-being and health and get your mind thinking. So glad to have you here today. Today we're going to cover riding, positioning, and pinning. This is a subject that I think has been really underused, underappreciated maybe, certainly not spoken about what degree I think should be about what is a key component to getting what you want out of putting someone on the mat. Today we're going to show you how to hurt a guy simply by riding, how to wear him out, and how to get to where you want to be to take your opponent out. All right, one of the first positions we're going to work right now is the spiral ride. A lot of people have the misconception that taking the back is simply a matter of throwing hooks in. But as you're going to find out, there are so many different ways to ride from behind on your opponent that if you thought taking the back with hooks was all that's available, you might just find something you find a lot better. I myself prefer to stay behind an opponent and try to break him down, because that way he's less likely to roll inside my guard and put me on my back if I was to have my hooks in. So one of my favorite rides we're going to go over right now, a staple of amateur wrestling, is called the spiral ride. We're going to start with what I like to call the referee's position, knee behind, knee on the side. And for grappling purposes, since my leg could be in danger if I was to leave it sitting directly between Eric's tailbone, there's a move called the Victor roll, where you can Eric roll through, take my leg. So be conscious of that. Anytime I'm going to work from behind, I actually like to keep my foot behind Eric's ankle here. And that actually will open up into some other rides from behind that we're going to go over later. But for the spiral ride, knee behind his butt, I'm going to grab a control point at his elbow here. I'm going to use this to try and chop and break his balance in. If I can get his elbow all the way in, now I can knock him over this post. Move on to any number of side control, mount, head and arm positions. Now here is the most important part about the spiral ride, my right arm here. It's going to come across his hip, and I'm going to use a knife edge like a pry bar on my hand. Come inside the hip and across the inside of Eric's thigh. This prying motion is what's going to enable me to stay in tight and pin me across his hips, because hip control truly is what's going to keep us in position to work the techniques that we want or to just stay behind our opponent and ride. On the elbow, across my head is center into his back. I don't like to leave my head up here, because if he tries to hit a stand-up and he hits his head back, boom, I'm going to get head-butted right in the eye. And while that may be illegal in submission grappling, and even in MMA, accidents happen and you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that. Stitches aren't that great, especially if the Novocaine doesn't happen to kick in all the way, I can tell you. So, hand comes in, levers against the thigh, and right here, I'm in a nice tight position. If Eric tries to move around, I can stay on him because I'm on his hip right now. I'm controlling his hip with this lever and breaking his arm down. Now the name spiral ride comes from the fact that we're going to use a spiral motion. We're actually going to come into the lever and knock the arm down in a rolling motion, spiral ride, which will lever his leg open his body up to us, and give us a side control. Another use with the arm position on the spiral ride is to come actually under the armpit and knock it forward here, so that we get this motion going, sort of like, I don't know, Superman or the Silver Surfer. If you don't read comic books, then think of it as swimming. I'll come under the armpit, knocking forward, levering the thigh, and here I am, tight in here. Of course, if I can get my arm through, I can reach and grab a one-on-one, or a far elbow, I can still hang in tight. If I don't want to try and pin in from here, I'm still in a good tight position to ride, and I have great control over my opponent. The spiral ride, in my opinion, is an excellent ride, not only for MMA and submission, but submission stuff as well. I can use it to turn my opponent, put a lot of pressure on his hips, make him carry a lot of my weight, which is always a key point to riding and positioning. But in MMA-wise, I can stay tight and hit. One part about the spiral ride, breaking our opponent down. By using this arm lever, and the motion either in the armpit and catching a one-on-one or a far arm, or just knocking him off balance, or chopping the arm, is that we can dump him over this post, open him up, put him on his back. Well, I'll tell you something. Eric Paulson, he eats lead for breakfast and he puts mercury on his cereal. He's got sand inside his joints instead of synovial fluid. So, basically what I'm trying to tell you, you want to talk about immovable objects? That's Eric when he gets in a 4-point position. Hardly anybody can break him down. And I certainly can't do it sitting here. So, one key point about the spiral ride is I can also use momentum with this ride, which is something that I really like a lot. And here I am using muscle power and trying to break him over with a lever. It's not happening. He's too heavy, he's too strong. But, so I swing my leg back, I can use the weight of my leg to force him off balance. I can also swing this leg to give myself more of a spiral motion. And last resort, and the only one I can really use to knock Eric over, if I can get him over at all, is to actually jump to the other side. And as I jump, I will change position, my right knee will come down, my left knee will come up, my left arm will now drop inside his thigh and lever as I'm coming over to the other side, giving me that extra momentum to take him off his base and put him in a better position for me to attack from. In high school wrestling, I used this move all the time on heavyweights, being that they were big, strong guys. And I was able to turn most people without a whole lot of effort, and I could certainly go from one side to the other and get a nice amount of speed going on the mat, which is really good to use against bigger and stronger opponents. Because if you can't beat them with strength, certainly, if they can't keep up with your speed, you're going to be at a huge advantage. First one, I'm move my leg back this way, sweeping my back leg, dump him over. Second, I'll sweep my outside leg, swinging it towards his head, and dump him over. Lastly, and my favorite, we'll go change completely to the other side. And from here, take a nice good underhook control and settle. Maybe go to a tripod or a face lock control. Another great position for riding from the back is called the crab or frog ride. So, again, here I am back controlling my opponent. Instead of throwing the hooks in, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to control his hips by pinching my knees on either side and keeping my center of gravity, my weight, directly over the top of his hips while using my hands to get a point of control, either with an underhook or a wrist control. So Eric's nice and tight in here. Say I can't get my hooks in. Well, I don't necessarily have to, and in my opinion, I don't want to. I'm not a big proponent of throwing the hooks in a fight, and I find that against the top level guys, more often than not, what ends up happening is you guys roll over, you're both on your back, and then he's going to roll inside and end up on top of you. Now you're on the bottom, getting ridden by your opponent, probably getting hit in the face. Same for submission grappling. Now all of a sudden he's got a reversal, he's on top, and he's going to start wearing you out. So, with this crab or frog ride, whichever you'd like to refer to it, I'm going to come over his hips, step, and pinch with my knees. And it is very important that you do not just sit here. I don't really have great control of Eric right now. If he goes to roll to either side or the other, go ahead and roll. My weight is is on top of him, but I don't have a good point of control. I'm not really riding his hips right now. I'm just sitting. If I pinch with my knees and there goes a roll, one, it's a lot harder for him to roll, and two, I can feel which way he's going to go much easier because of the point of contact and control I have with my hips and my knees. My hands, for MMA, you could sit upright and hit all day long, creating your opponent to give you an option. With submission wrestling, you take a puff right here, a breather, keep your hands in the center of his back if you want, or work inside and get hand control. Now some folks, if you do want to go and take the back from here, if I can knock him forward, then I can work to get a hook in if I want. But this ride also works if Eric happens to turn over to stay behind my opponent. From here, I'm still going to pinch, control with my knees, and my feet are going to grapevine from the outside in. And here is my control point. I'll get a one-on-one or a lasso, and I'll work inside here, controlling my opponent. He's going to try and turn off into me, and I'm going to control with my feet. Eventually, if you want, you can work your way into locking your legs here, being wary of an ankle lock, or just keeping your legs inside, on the inside of his side, which I like. Your lasso or your one-on-one. You can also always go back to your crab ride too, to sit your opponent up, or to transition easier to another move. Whatever it may be, the crab ride can also be done any number of ways, one leg in, one leg out, or both legs control. Crab ride is also excellent for taking position from the back to like mount or side control. My crab ride, I can sit off to the side, kick my hip out, and now I'm on top. The crab ride is an excellent control ride, but it's really wonderful for flowing and will give you a lot of options that doesn't lock you down to simply just taking the back with your hooks in. One thing important to know about the crab ride is the crab ride is not a static ride. I like to think of it as a floater, similar to a position like knee on belly. So, with the crab ride, don't concern yourself so much with being stuck in one spot. Your opponent's not likely to sit still for you, and if he does, he's only making your job that much easier. Crab ride, key points are knees pinched, riding these hips, controlling your weight, and reading your opponent and riding his movements. Eric turns over. I follow, hook, and here I am in my crab ride. He's probably not going to stay here. I might get one hook in. Here I am. I turn him over, work my half Nelson until we get on top. He turns all the way to his all fours again. And here I am back to my crab, riding it out. There's my crab ride again. I'm extending his legs, trying to keep him in place. Go to a lasso. Back to my crab ride. Bing, bing, bing. It's a floater, not a static position. A lot of you may be familiar with the mount position, and if you are, you're probably familiar with being bucked off. So here we are, grabs a hold of one of my hands, or maybe not, sitting up trying to punch, and he bridges. Whoops, turns into me, and I'm off. Well, one nifty little trick that I've learned through the years is something called the rodeo mount. So, we're in mount position. Now we're going to grab a hold of our opponent's head here, my good buddy Rob, and I'm going to hold on for 8 seconds. So go ahead and buck. He loses so much power out of his bridge because he's trying so hard to force his head to the ground that it keeps it so much easier for me to stay on. And if you really want to work this position, we're going to take a mount sitting on his legs, and this is fine. You can underhook. I'm going to get a hold of his head. Go ahead and get me off. Every time my butt drops back down on his chest, it takes that much more air out of him. From here, we could transition into a triangle choke with no arms, or we can just simply slide off, go to a side control position. A lot of times, the easiest way to get into this is one of my favorite entries from Eric Paulson, and that is called helicopter mount. Push, helicopter my legs over. Now that I got his head, hold on for 8 seconds. Yeah! Just like Dr. Strangelove riding a nuclear bomb all the way down to the ground. All I'm doing is keeping his head up and using my legs here as posts. So if he tries to take me one direction or the other, I've got my post. What people will do to abandon, they'll try to throw this leg off to one side, and all that does is put us right into our side control. Similar to rides like the crab ride, knee on belly, this is another floating ride. You can keep this position for quite a while, but truly, it's a great transitional position and one to take some of the steam out of your opponent. Here is one of my absolute personal favorites, the knee on belly ride. It's transitional, it's a floating ride. It's not static, but it has so many options for us to go to legs, arms, neck. It's a ride that can allow us to go anywhere we want to over the body. Not to mention, it can be used to take so much energy out of our opponent. And in MMA, it's a great position to punch from, because it frees your arms up. Basic premise with knee on belly is just like it sounds. I'm going to take my knee and shin, put it right across his belly. I like to actually drop my toe onto the ground to give myself a little more pressure to push with. Some folks actually like to point their knee, but for me, I feel that I have a lot more control and power from my knee into his belly if I can put my foot into it. That allows me to drive. My support leg is going to come out either at an angle. I can keep it here or here. One concern might be if he hooks my leg from here, and that's fine. We've got something for that. The one thing about riding, and especially something like this, which is a floating transitional type of ride, is that you should already be aware of the sort of escapes and entries and the directions that your opponent is going to go. And this is going to be something I'm going to reiterate constantly throughout this video series. Whether it's submissions, takedowns, suplexes, punching, kicking, anything you can think of in terms of combat arts, if you're already 3 moves ahead of your opponent, what you can do is you can dictate where you want him to go and eventually put you in the position to finish what you want to finish with. So, knee on belly. Here's a standard knee on belly position. I'm riding free. My hands are open. I can also take a nice underhook here, cup the shoulder and the arm, and drop my elbow into his chest, applying pressure into his chest here and with the knee on the belly there. You can wrap, take a Wigan or Olympic grip, and include the head into this. This is also a very tight ride. But don't expect just because you have his head up that he won't be able to butt and get you moving. Like I said, this is transitional. Every movement he makes is going to give me another opportunity to go to a different position or to the submission that I want. Here's my knee on belly. Knee on belly can be done just with the head. And here's a great one. You can move, if you simply move your knee into his xiphoid process a little higher up on his chest, pull the head in. Some folks just might even tap out. But I guarantee you, if they're not tapping out, they're certainly not going to be taking a very good breath. And the less breaths they take, the more tired they get working under you, the much easier it's going to be when you want to pull that submission off and you want to hook them good. Key points about this: keeping my weight on my knee here, riding heavy, but at the same time having this leg posted in such a way that I can move and circle the head if I have to, go across the body. I need to be able to be agile and able to transition at any moment. So don't think of this, I'm here and that's the only place I'm going to be. be prepared to move anytime you need to move. Because your opponent, he's going to be trying to get like hell out of there. There's no fun. The other key points, some sort of control point is always a good idea. I like the underhook in the head. This is a very strong position, and it also, in a way, it encourages our opponents to actually fight to get their way out of there. And by his fighting to escape, go ahead, that's when he's going to give me something that I really want to finish this match. The more reactions we get out of him, the better. The more energy he's using, and the more opportunities that are going to become available to us. Here's how you know when you're doing a successful knee on belly. Life sucks for this guy. We're going to go to a little variation of our knee ride. So we've done knee on belly. Now, as much as I love knee on belly, I really love this next ride. And it's not that, I can't claim that I invented it, because there's no move under the sun that any of us can do that someone hasn't done thousands of years before. I would just like to say that I rediscovered this technique. And this is called the knee on neck. So, we got our standard knee ride. Well, you should go to say that if I can put my knee on his belly and get a ride out of him, if I could probably just as easily put my knee on his neck and face. So, it's really just as simple as transitioning from my knee on his belly, my knee across his neck and throat. Now, in this position, his head is straight up, and that's fine. I'll drive my shin bone down under his chin and try to keep his head stuck to the mat. If I can keep his head planted to the mat, it's going to reduce his ability to bridge, move, and roll significantly. It's also going to cause a lot of pain and probably choke him to at least some extent. My leg's a little too fat, and don't say anything about it. I'm really sensitive about my fat legs. But, so I'm unlikely, but if you have a real dagger shin, I suppose you might even be able to slide it in there, pull up on the neck, and get a good choke out of it. But for me, I use it to induce pain and to keep a good position on this guy. Anytime you can control the neck and immobilize his neck and head, the rest of his body is not going to be able to work very well. Wherever the neck goes, the body follows, and if the neck ain't going anywhere, you can imagine the body's not going to go too far either. My favorite, though, is to catch the head at a turn. Now I'm putting immense pressure on his vertebrae. Got my knee off to the side. I'm driving all my body weight right into his face here. He will react. I promise you. I've not come across too many people that don't move from here. And the only reason they might is because they're so exhausted they can't move anyways, and life is about as just ugly as it could be for that guy. So, I turn his chin with my knee, place my shin bone across his jawline, get my post leg out, and drive into his face. In fact, he's already tapping. This is why I pay him the big money, because he's got to take me right on face. So, here I am. I can grab a control point here if I want to and drive the knee in. That may get me a tap out, depending. This is an incredible position for not just submission wrestling, but MMA as well, because it frees you up to be able to strike the body, strike the face, and it's gonna, if you are allowed to throw knees, bing, drop it right in there. This is the knee on neck ride. Knee on belly, knee on neck, and our last one, great one to strike from, the double knee ride. Knee on belly, I'm going to sweep my shin into his face, or I'm going to take it and drive it across, load my weight onto my knees, and sit, and hit, or work to submit. Whatever's available. But the key thing is, I'm loading my weight heavy on my knees, and I'm just waiting. You want to add a little more pressure, go ahead and sit up and drive your feet into the mat. Again, these knee rides are floating transitional rides. I can pin Rob here pretty good, but the thing is about the pain, he's going to want to move. Go ahead and escape. From there, now I'm back to knee on belly again. Just as easy, he hooks my foot, he brings me right into knee on double knee ride. I transition, knee on the neck again. He throws my leg off over his head, knee on belly, knee on face. These rides are interchangeable and flow from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And later on in this DVD, I'll show you some drills so that you can not only perfect your transitioning here, but you can learn to master all three of these rides and interchange between all of them. This is a variation off the mount called the reverse mount. Something I came into because I really like leg locks, but also because of the way I was taught, and the way you're going to learn with catch wrestling, is that there is never any one perfect way to do anything, and that the ability to adapt and change and use what's available is what's going to most benefit you on the mat. I learned a whole hell of a lot about this ride from Eric Paulson from a long time ago when I met him at a seminar in Seattle. I think I was only 19 years old, and Eric's got a ton of funny stories that I'm sure wouldn't be that hard to get him to say in front of camera. But the guy got me addicted to ties. That's off topic. So, this ride, on first inspection, people are going to think it's just for leg rides. We're going for leg locks. What benefit would this have me other than going for a leg lock? They would think I can't strike, I can't do much else. Well, for one, this whole time as I've been speaking, poor Rob here has had my butt on top of his abs, driving my weight into him. And I'm not even really trying to ride with it right yet. This compressing of his abdomen is keeping him from being able to get a good breath, and it's tiring him out. Two, I do have a good attack for leg locks, but I can strike. I can back this, hit. It's not as limited as you think. And the greatest thing about this is that I can stay in here pretty much all day. We have a couple of ways that we're going to ride with this. One way is actually to ride with my feet crossed underneath. This way, I'm locked down on his hips. I'm not exerting as much pressure on his stomach as I can from other positions, but I'm in here. And I can use this to transition off to the side and immediately go for things like knee bar, toe hold, whatever the case may be. But because my legs are already locked, I'm keeping his knees together, and I'm keeping my hips locked onto his legs. Second variation is helicopter style. My feet out, I'll pick up on his leg, and I'll sit my hips in. This one forces a lot of pressure onto his stomach, and is either going to cause him to move, or to burp, like me, probably. Feel like burping? Soon. Or he might just rip a big one, take out that camera in front of us. But your opponent farting is not going to be an unnatural reaction if you get it into this position. I've actually tapped guys out in training just from sitting on his belly like this. Oh yeah, this one? That was an Eric Paulson special. Anytime he can drop his butt on you. He's not known for this, but in the gym we call him the booty drop. There you go. The other way you can ride from this move is you can also do it from one leg. And that's fine. But you must be aware that this leg, since you don't have a hold of it, is the one that's likely he's going to pull out. And in some cases, that's good for us. He goes to escape that leg, he goes right into our knee bar. Easiest entry to get into this, side control, side riding position, post, helicopter over, right into my reverse mount. From here, lock, and or rodeo. One leg style too. Another great way to get into the reverse mount, off of a pass, swing the leg all the way over, and drop right in. From here, you've certainly passed the guard, and it's given you a great, strong position to hold from, and to keep yourself tight to his body. From here, it's just a simple matter of Usually pulling up will make him push his legs down, which allows me to transition to sucking. Or you can go ahead and stay in and back the legs. We're going to work the tripod ride from inside our opponent's guard. What we're going to do here, we're going to actually bury our head into his chest, come inside his arms here, either to his armpits, his elbows, and post our legs up into a tripod position, giving us a good strong base. We can also do it by hooking a head and hooking the arm. Driving the shoulder in, up, and tripod. We're going to drive our weight forward and our shoulder into his neck, controlling his head, putting pressure on him, making life suck all together and be incredibly uncomfortable. One of the key points about the tripod is forward pressure on either his chest or his neck. My favorite is actually to hook the head and the arm, but this has a lot of uses as well. It's certainly an easy way to get into a good striking position from the tripod. Another key point about the tripod is that my legs are wide. My legs are too narrow. Rob is just going to reach, grab my leg, and either go for an arm bar or roll me over this way, or suck my legs straight into him, drop his knees in, pull my heels, push, and over I go. Anybody that's seen like UFC 2 has probably seen something similar. So what we're going to do, nice wide strong base. If he goes for one leg, that's fine. I can rotate and adjust, especially if I'm staying high here. If I have to drop down off my tripod, that's fine. I can always go right back into it. If I have his head, it's going to be a little more difficult for him to get a hold of my legs. But it's still possible. But if I can keep his head pinned, he's going to be unlikely to be able to rotate very well to use it. The one thing I must be aware of is the arm bar. Because my arm is locked in here, Rob might try and hip up and go for the arm bar off of his back. Go ahead, keep going. So, now that I know that it's coming, as long as I can stay in tight and keep my elbow high and inside, I should be okay in defending my neck and my arm. This arm under his neck, posture up, and I'm good. Key thing about this is that I know that it's coming. And as long as you know what's coming, you should be able to defend it. Here's our tripod. Putting a lot of pressure on the neck, and from here we can adjust, going to a hip hop, drop an elbow on the throat, try to wear him out, or give a tap, or simply make him open his guard. Go ahead, lock your guard. Now, open your guard up and try to sweep or armbar or anything. Now his guard's broke, and we can work the pass. That's the tripod. Here's a common position, the half guard. You're likely to end up in here if you're trying to pass, or as you've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, people are willingly going to the half guard position to work different sweeps and reversals. But either way, anybody that gets on the mat is going to find themselves in this half guard position. Key things about being on top in half guard. A, controlling his neck. If he wants to sweep me, go for my leg, anything he's going to want to do, he's going to have to move his head to do it. Either by turning onto his side and bringing his head under me, or turning away and getting an underhook. Anything he's going to want to do, he's going to have to move his head. So what we're going to do is we're going to immobilize his head first, and we got a couple of ways that we can do that. One is reach for the trap, drop our elbow onto his chest, slide it in under the neck, and take an underhook and drive into the neck first. Pinning his neck, attacking his throat, making life suck. I can also do it with a power half, where I will take a gable or Olympic grip. My underhook arm will be knuckles to the ceiling. My arm going across the throat, palm to the ceiling. I will drive my elbow in, pick his shoulder up, and drive my hip weight here off of my half guard down across his chest and trying to drive my hip weight into this support arm here that's across his neck. I can also do this by pinning his face to the floor either way, and this will keep him locked in position, and it really sucks and hurts from right here. The other key point about this is I am using my hips on his hips and on his abdomen. I'm going to stress a lot. There are no free rides on bottom. Many people, not to bash any styles, but especially from jiu-jitsu, they don't teach being heavy on top. And they certainly don't teach inducing pain. Some places consider it dirty wrestling, but we don't know anything about dirty wrestling here. We got skid marks on our draws every day. So, anyhow, hip control and pressure. We're going to ride heavy. If this guy's going to be on bottom, I'm going to make him pay for it. This is a great opportunity for me to take away his stamina, his energy, and to try and break his will. Once I can break his will, I can do what I want with him. So I'm riding heavy with my hips. My hips are driving in. Even if he's got his legs locked, that's fine. You can triangle him. Figure 4. I don't mind. My hip goes in. It's heavy. I put my foot in the floor, drive into him, take my underhook, either underhook the head, shoulder under the chin, head to head, forearm on the throat, power half, drive the elbow in, chest in, slide, all that stuff. But none of it is as effective if I don't have the hip weight heavy. From here, I can certainly feel any motions he wants to do, and if I've got his head pinned, go ahead and try to reach and go under my leg. He can't bring his head to his arm, so therefore he doesn't have much power in that direction. One of my trainers, Billy Robinson, he's got a way of locking, what he likes to call locking down the half guard. You can have your legs however you want. What he prefers to do is actually to shoot the leg that's being locked nice and deep and try to get it to the crook of my knee. From here, I'm going to bring it across and figure 4 to my trail leg here. And Billy will even ride perpendicular and driving his hips into his opponent and hipping in, or as Eric has mentioned, DOM or HOM, hip on mat, and I'll let you figure out what DOM means. So, simply from here, I'm going to ride really heavy into his hips. I can bring my legs even off the floor, right here, catch the head. But the important part is figure 4. Adjust, hips in. I'm actually going to bring my hips down a little bit and get them a little bit lower than his, and then bring them back in to his rib cage. Right now, Rob is under a lot of strain, and I'm forcing a lot of pressure into his diaphragm and gut, keeping him from being able to take a good breath. It's easy to attack the double wrist lock, straight arm lock. You can easily ride with a single wrist arm grab here, a one-on-one, and controlling his elbow. The dangers can be if he was to get his arm through, try to come around my back. But the thing about the Billy hold down is that my heavy hips stop him from being able to get very far under me. And anytime anybody gives me an arm like that, I'm going to come back and cross face. This ride on first inspection, and when you're first learning, it might seem a little dangerous because you might not have a lockdown. But getting perpendicular to your opponent and riding heavy in the hips is something that wrestlers have been doing a long time. And I guarantee you, this ride works. The head and arm ride. I'm sure people have seen it in pro wrestling for many years, but in amateur wrestling it's a very common position, and judo as well. This position is a very common ride, honestly, but it's very, very effective because it controls the neck. And again, with everything that we do as a ride, we want to try and wear our opponent out and put ourselves in better position to attack for submission. Certainly, if our opponent is tired, that's always going to be much easier to accomplish. Standard head and arm ride, I'm going to come deep under the neck, and I actually like to sort of lift my arm to the right under the crown to give myself a little more lift. I can catch right under here, but I always find that if I can get under the crown just a bit, that allows me to get the leverage to lift his head higher, which helps us to put more pressure on his chest, make it harder for him to bridge and roll us over, and to take his wind away. So, after I come under the neck, my knee is going to slide tight under his shoulder and grab a hold of my own thigh. Once I'm here, I'll be tight to his armpit, tight from my hand, elbow position, under his neck, to my thigh. Lastly, for basics, I'm going to come here. I'm going to use a hook. I don't know where the hell that came from, not even Jewish. So I'm going to use a hook underneath his tricep, no laughing, to lift his elbow high, and then flare my elbow back and across my own rib cage, pinning it tight. From here, to finish this ride, my legs go out in a nice strong base position. This leg goes back. I don't want to keep my legs too close together because this doesn't give me a lot of power. It also gives him an opportunity to escape. If Rob was to push my head and sit up, I have nothing behind me keeping me in position and keeping him down on the mat. And boy, when you feel silly once you went and actually got there and then you got put on your back. Everybody's going to laugh at you. It's like Monty Python. So, here we go. My leg at a nice strong angle, pressure, and to finish this, my butt has to come off the floor, and I'm going to use my legs to adjust my pressure into his chest by lifting his arm and driving my hip weight into it. Right here, I'm taking out his ability to take a breath, putting pressure on his neck, and is this comfortable? No. That's exactly what I want. I never want my opponent to be comfortable underneath me. So here we are. Make sure to try and lock in deep onto the thigh. Sometimes if you can't get it, you can just bring your knee in, and that's a good hold position right here. I can exert a lot of power here, but it would be a lot better if you can get it in as tight as possible. Sometimes you can even take a wig grip, as Billy calls it, lock it in tight, lock against the elbow, hips off the floor. Right now I'm riding nice and tight and high into his rib cage. I can give a little adjustment, put my rib cage into his rib cage, or turn, put more of the flat of my back into his rib cage. Either way, I'm keeping his head high, tight on the arm, and my butt in the air, my body weight on my opponent. This is going to keep him tight to the mat. This is also what is going to induce him to want to move. Now, things that are likely going to happen, one of the most easy ways people are learned to, have been taught to escape this position is to try and take the back. So he's going to try and shrimp. Now, the way I stop that from happening is by a tight control on his neck, wig and grip, or on the thigh. And as he shrimps, I adjust. Shrimp and try and turn your shoulder down. Go ahead and pull it out a little bit. See? One thing that I should mention why he's having such a hard time shrimping is his shoulder is sitting on the shelf of my leg here. And because it's there, when he tries to pull his shoulder down, he can't really get it down. And the other thing stopping it is by pinching and wrapping his arm tight against my rib cage. It's keeping his shoulder up because I don't want this shoulder to hit the deck. If his shoulder gets to the floor, now he's halfway there to getting around my back. And now we're going to have to fight all over again. And maybe Rob might even use a crab rod. Oh, look at that. Oh, he's been reading the DVD booklet. All right, so say Rob does start to get his shoulder down. I'm going to lift the head, lift the shoulder, drive back in, and reposition myself. Another thing I'll do is as Rob tries to turn, I will circle the head. Turns, I circle the head. Now you can't see me, but I'm still circling the head. Kind of a Three Stooges gimmick. You ever see Curly? So, here I am, head up. Another way to ride with this is arm pinched across the face. Lock, here, reach and grab your elbow, and sit. In fact, a guy is tired. I'll give you a nice anecdote. First time I rolled with Eric Paulson, really rolled with Eric Paulson. I was wore out. I was training with Blue of Blue's Training Systems, .net, the best strength and conditioning guy in the entire world you could ever find, and the strongest, buffest old man that ever existed. So I'm training with Lou. I'm training at Eric's. I'm training at Raw Gym. I'm exhausted. Every day I'm so tired. I'm coming back from having a bit of a layoff. This is before I tore my shoulder out against Pro Cop. And I'm gassed out, I'm rolling around, and you know what Eric does? Slips into the head and arm position, gets my arm, sits up, and when you know it, here I am doing this damn thing, thinking, how the heck did I ever get caught in that? But seriously, you take the wind out of this guy, you get his head up a little bit, and the tap out's really not that far away. All you gotta do is sit, relax, let him struggle. Mark Coleman, he took out Dan Severn with the very same thing. So, arm across, wig and grip, gable or Olympic grip, or an elbow grip, elbow to elbow if you can do it. And just simply sit up. Keep your butt off the ground, stay on your heels, and the thing about the head and arm ride is you need to be mobile. If he tries to roll me over across with a bridge, I need to be able to post. Come back into my ride. It's okay if I have to let go for a second, because I'm still in my ride. Come back, catch the head on the way back, right into the crown again, and inside, I'm back into my ride. I might turn this, catch, I'm posting this arm, posting this leg, I'll come back, I'm back in the ride. I've heard a lot of jiu-jitsu guys go, that ride is crap. Don't use that ride. You get your back thing every time. Well, I don't necessarily think so. I think that this ride has a lot of merit, and I've used it on wrestlers, jiu-jitsu guys, other catch guys, pretty much any type of submission stylist you can think of, or wrestling stylist. And I can guarantee you that this thing works. I've seen Eric use it against any kind of opponent you can think of. It works. This is a great ride. And certainly, as long as you understand its weaknesses and strengths, and that goes for any ride that you're going to encounter along the way. You always must understand the weakness and strength of any move, any position, any submission that you're going to do. That in turn allows you to do like I'm talking earlier on, and that is knowing where your opponent's ability is to go. So being steps ahead of your opponent. I know to escape this, he's going to try and bridge me, or he's going to try and take my back, he's going to shrimp. I know the escapes that he's going to do, and because I know those escapes, I know what he's going to give me and the kind of positions he's going to put himself in. He goes to bridge me over, I close, trap, come back, and now I got that head nice and tight. He tries to shrimp out, he shrimps onto his shoulder, that's fine. Turn, look into some sort of choke here, like a 3/4 Nelson, or now go to a front choke or front face lock. I know where he's going to go, which is going to allow me to transition. So, we went over the head and arm ride. Very basic, very common. Now, we're going to go over one that's a little less used, and that is the reverse head and arm. We can do it with the arm in, which you may see, looks more like a side control ride. But truly, a reverse head and arm is without the arm. The reverse head and arm ride. It's exactly like the head and arm in almost all aspects, except for now we're actually across the body. Because his hook is underneath us, we have to be careful that he doesn't go out the back door. Bridge, take your arm out. Now, the way we're going to control this is the same way we control the head and arm ride, and that is by controlling his neck and his head. And actually, that's a pretty common thread amongst all riding positions. If I can control his neck and his head, I control where his body's able to move, or whether it's able to move at all. I've got my far underhook here. My right arm, my near arm, is going to go under the head. I'm going to lock it up with either a Wigan grip, a gable or Olympic grip, or what I like to do, I'm going to grab my wrist and bring it in as tight as possible. My hips are coming up and his head comes up. I'm going to ride my body weight, my rib cage, right into his diaphragm process right here, which is directly above his diaphragm. You know, that thing that moves in and out that gets air into his body. When that doesn't work so great, that makes our job that much easier. Under the crown of the neck, just like in the head and arm, I'll come under and then lift up, grab my wrist. I can also grab it this way. That's okay. And lift. And sit. Now the great thing about this ride is it's a great entry into the spinning arm lock, as Eric is known to call out in practice, from every position. What? I can slip the head, step. I can simply go and turn the corner and go into a double wrist lock or a crooked head scissors. But since we're only working on riding, the important part of this is keeping that head up, keeping that butt off the floor, staying tight into his chest. Escape that he's going to try and do, probably A number one, is he's going to try and go out the back door with this arm. Go ahead. And the way I'm going to stop that is by putting a lot of pressure on the underhook and keeping this armpit and shoulder off the mat. The other thing is blocking his head. To go out the back door, his head has to follow his underhook. If his head can't follow, go ahead, can't go out the back door. Which is good for us because of this position, he may think that he's got an easy out. Catch. Now he's trying to struggle, he's trying to get out, but he's not getting anywhere. And he thinks maybe just one more try, one more, no, the Gipper, come on for the Gipper, go, Gipper, go. It didn't work. And he just spent all that energy. See, listen to him, he sounds like a horse after running a long acres mile or whatever it is. So, how might we end up in a reverse head and arm? Well, you could transition from a standard head and arm ride. You can come here, lock, sit, let his arm through, and then sit through. Sort of a bait and switch. But most likely where you would end up, let's see, you're in side control or in mount, and through the scramble, he gets an arm underneath your body. So let's say bridge me up in this direction. But here I ended up. His head is free. He's trying to go out the back door, catch his head, and sit through. This ride is a wonderful ride. It's a great way to take the energy out of your opponent and look at the cameras while you're doing it. The single leg ride, a staple of amateur wrestling, not something that's been used a whole lot in the submission game so far, but nonetheless, I think this is a great ride to use in the submission game, the MMA game, and certainly it's a great ride to float and transition. A lot of great turnovers, a lot of great submissions from this. But before we can even go to that point, let's learn the single leg ride. Everybody, I'm sure, is, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are familiar with putting in a hook stick. Very basic technique, taking back, go for the choke, arm bar, whatever. But in amateur wrestling, a lot of times, what we work, or what they'll work, is called a single leg ride. To enter into this, I'll usually try to open up here inside the hip, insert my leg. Like a spiral ride is a great example of how to enter into a single leg ride. I spiral ride my opponent forward. From there, I can slide my leg in. And there are various schools. One school is that I only stick my leg in as deep as the inside of the thigh. I'm of that school. Mainly because when I do a lockdown with a grapevine, it ends up being a lot of pressure on my knee. But this is going to vary on body type to body type. So for this example, I'm just going to insert it to the back of the knee and inside the thigh. So we open his thigh, slide our leg in, and here we are. Now, to ride from the single leg ride, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get my hip weight across his hips. And this is the key to staying in here. Pressure with my leg. Actually, like some people will figure 4 in here if they want and lock down, or you can just simply knee to your foot. That's fine. Pinching tight, keeping my leg in, and controlling. I can simply control his hip, go one-on-one, lasso. All these things are great ways to hold yourself in here, but the key point is controlling his hips. From here, now I'm riding. I can ride like Superman if I want to. My mom said I could.
Don't ride dirty.
I don't ride dirty. So, we'll go with a one-on-one and a single leg ride in the face. We're in here tight. We can work to turn. We can actually work for a choke right here. That's fine. We can work for a face lock, or we can work to get for a hammer lock up the back, or everybody's favorite, the cobra twist, the wrestler's guillotine. All of this comes from the single leg ride. Controlling his hip, keeping our hip weight across, and either taking an underhook on this side, a one-on-one, or you can simply just reach across and ride the hip. These all keep you in position to stay in a single leg ride. Another great entry for the single leg ride was called an Iowa ride. So, here I am riding my opponent, say with a spiral ride. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my knee across his knee or inside his thigh. I'm going to take my back leg, hooking his ankle. I'm going to pull it out in a way to me, which is going to allow me to insert my single leg ride right here. And I can simply pinch, and I'm in. I can work from toe holds, reverse toe holds, syncopation. And it's a great way to get into a leg ride. I also like the Iowa because I can break him down right in his toe holds. Banana split. Whatever the case may be, but it's a great way to get in. Oh, he wants to put cobra twist. So, spiral, drop, hook, insert. So from the leg ride, one of the great advantages of this is this hook right here isn't just keeping us in place and helping us right onto his hip, but it's also a great lever, like we use our arm in the spiral ride, to turn our opponent over. One of the basic, and in fact the move I use with a lot of success in wrestling, is power half with a leg ride. Locking myself in, I'll reach high through the armpit, up to the elbow. My knife edge of my arm will go across the back of his neck, causing pressure, and I'll lock in my Olympic grip, high, and turn him over. Now I've got him broke down onto his side. In a good pinning predicament, I can go into my abdominals or cobra twist. I can also transition from here. I can take my hook out and come on top. Get a nice brace for a double wrist lock, or work into a face lock or choke. Insert, power half. Even if his arm is in tight, I'm going to go on the neck first and drop my bone across the neck. This arm comes in tight to his body. I'll lock, feed my elbow through, step, and drop. If we want, we can go right into our crab ride. One in, one out. Go for our choke, our sleeper. One of the most successful moves for me from the leg ride is a single leg Turk. After inserting the leg, I'm going to use a spiral motion, just like we did with the spiral ride, but now instead of using our arm as a lever, we're going to use our leg. So, riding his hips, say an underhook and a one-on-one, I can use momentum off of I can use momentum off of a kick, or I can use my hands. Here, I go. Using my hip and my leg as a lever to turn him over, left him out. In our single leg ride, got the hips, going to turn, I can use my hands, I can use a leg. And another thing that'll help a lot with this is posting your hands on the floor right as you go. Opening his hip up. If he does lock you into half guard, push down, go ahead. That's fine, because we're still in tight. Maybe catch that wrist. I can go for the Billy lockdown. I'm in good position. He's on his back, I'm riding. This is where we want to be. See? Totally hates it. All the power in your single leg Turk is going to come from your hips. Use your leg to drive off in the back, or if you want, you can use the momentum of the spin to use your hip pressure. It just depends. Sometimes I find I use the leverage and the momentum off of my leg. Sometimes I'm going to find I'm going to use the hip. I have really strong hips and big legs, so in fact, I like to just use the hip in the. But if that's not really where your strength lies, then using the momentum off the leg or with the arm might be better suited. Lastly, if you want to get fancy with this, you can drop that single leg right in, dive straight through this hole in between his arm, his elbow, and his knee, and hook his head and right between his legs as you go. Take him over, right into your sleeper. This, I think, would be good for a guy with a lot of length over her, because he'll be able to get that momentum to get his head through that hole right here. Sort of our aiming point. And I don't want to put my head right here to the mat. I actually want to try and get it under his body. Another helpful move with this is I can take this just like the spiral and lever into his tricep. That'll help me to pull him over.
That was the mat. That was not us. That was the mat.
From here, on my leg ride, boop, my toe hold, my one-on-one, try to take a hammer lock, or cobra twist, whatever the case may be. Now I've got him broken down, he's on the mat, and I'm riding on his back. One of the simplest breakdowns from this also is the spiral ride. Leg in, leg, arm. I'll drop my hip and open his hip up, go into a crab, or a full-on leg ride here, both hooks. Now, the one thing I'll say about this though, and any of the leg rides, like the dive, like any other ones that are going to end you up on your back, be forewarned that if you are willingly putting yourself on your back, there is a likelihood that this guy may escape and get on top, which is where we don't want to be. If at all costs, if at all possible, we always want to be on top. Never be on your back, never be on bottom when you can be on top. Why would I want him to ride me or punch me or be the guy, controlling from on top when I could be that guy, wearing him out? So, take a leg ride, spiral ride, drop my hip in, knocking his post, this near leg out, and rolling my shoulder, and flaring his hip open with my lever here, my arm. Now I can go to a crab ride, which is a good transition from here because this crab ride can help me to center him in between my legs, which helps us to keep him right where we want him to be. And then I can go my double leg ride, and into my sleeper, or face lock. Now to our basic ride from behind, the double leg ride, or double grapevine, or just as referred to by many, throwing your hooks in. So, people are familiar, they've seen it in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's almost like clockwork. The guy gets behind the guy, the first thing he does is he tries to throw the hooks in. But I'll tell you, it's not quite as easy as that. And certainly, I can think of many of a time where a professional fighter has taken the back, and just because they immediately went to throw the hooks in, they ended up either A, getting rolled over onto the back, and then the other guy turning inside his guard, or B, taking the guy's back, never being able to finish the fight, and spending a whole round there without being able to finish the match, which in turn could cost him later on. Anytime I get a chance to fully finish a guy, that's what I want. And I gotta tell you, just getting your hooks in does not ensure that you're going to get a choke on your opponent. But with this, the way I'm going to teach it to you today, I think I'm going to show you some options with it that will help you to use it more effectively in any area, be it MMA or submission wrestling, that you want to use it and have a lot more success. Our basic entry to this is going to be, I'm going to spiral ride, get his hips forward, sit up and post on my leg, and once I've created this space between his hip and his elbow, I'm going to drive my hook in here, and then I'm going to take my spiral right arm, shove the elbow, come over, and drive my other hook in, centering myself on his back, and pinching my knees tight. I don't have it grapevined all the way through, and in fact, I like to just put the hooks in just as deep as the inside of the groin. From here, put my hands on the mat, and hip forward, and flatten him out. Now from this position, you're not in any danger of being rolled and put on your back. And if I can keep my hip pressure in you, go ahead and roll on your side. It's going to be very difficult for this guy to roll us all the way over onto our back, which you might see a lot with people when they're throwing the legs in. So from here, got a good control position. I can go ahead and keep my arms right out in front of me because I'm using that to drive hip pressure into his low back and keep his legs off the floor. I can lock my legs if I want to, or I can just keep my toes in the ground to keep his feet off the ground. Either way, my hip pressure goes right into his back. If he reaches out to grab my arms, that's fine. I'll just keep hand control. If you want to reach under and get a one-on-one, or control his head, or whatever the case may be, that's fine. But the number one thing is your hip pressure into his back, keeping him flat and on his face. From here, if it's MMA, we can just hit with one arm, elbow the shoulder here, elbow the side of the biceps and triceps there. There's plenty of options because you're in a nice solid position. Another great entry into our double leg ride. We'll start from our crab or frog ride. Here we are behind our opponent. I'm going to take my hands like Y's. I'm going to put them right into his armpit here, jamming him forward and putting my thumbs onto the back of the shoulder blades, giving myself a place to push myself up. From here, I'm going to simply drop my heels in and work my underhooks and kick my legs back. This is more typical with the double wrist control and rolling them forward. But like I said before, really what's allowing me to keep him flat is my hip pressure. And even from here, as I sit back on his back, go ahead and roll over. He's going to have a hard time doing it. He can reach back and hook his foot. I have a submission here. I have a reverse toe hold this way, or Achilles lock, heel hook, whatever I want to work. Or I can just simply tickle. Just control. Here's his foot, it's trapped, bridge. If he does manage to turn, go ahead and turn hard. Let him. Just like with our crab rides and a lot of our other rides, we transition because we know where he's going and we're just keeping our pressure and hips around our opponent. So, crab ride, take our hands inside the armpits. That allows us to turn, drop a heel in, drop a heel in. From here, now this is the most pivotal point at finishing your double leg ride. Now is the time where he's going to have the easiest opportunity to roll over onto his back. Go ahead and roll onto your back. Now, roll inside our guard. So, do not think of this again as being static. pinch, ride, and from here I can ride and hit. But also, if he rolls, go ahead and roll, pose, and here I am. Now I'm in a mount position. The only way that I'm going to be accomplishing this is by controlling his hips, pinching, and being ahead of the game. I'm waiting for his reaction. And right now, I have no reason to go anywhere. I'm perfectly fine right here, and I'm not in any danger. Don't get in a hurry. Just start driving and working for this, and then he rolls over. Now we're on our back, he keeps rolling. Now I'm on my back because I'm rushing things. I tell you what, when you get to where you want to be, take your time. Don't rush it. Don't force things. Things are going to come to you because you're in good position. If I do want to flatten him out, go for my double underhooks, roll him forward, break him down. Back up. Here, I can also go just like the first one, hands on the mat, flatten him out. Nice and flat, giving us a nice dominant position and a place where we're secure to work what we want without being in any danger. So, here we are on a double leg ride. For those of you, here's another option. One that I don't like as much, but it's still something that does work and can be effective. As you've seen, this is a very common way of working for your choke and using the double leg ride. So I've got my double leg ride in. Say I have a one-on-one or a lasso. One arm over the neck, one arm under the armpit. I'll turn, flare, and open his hips to the ceiling. From here, I'll work for my choke. Or let's say a face lock, or whatever may come my way, a nose lock. But here, I've got my heels inside his thighs, got him straight in front of me, and I always profess, until it's time to go for your submission, either keeping a lasso with an underhook, or an underhook and a single wrist ride, a double wrist ride, always keeping some sort of inside control, because without that, he's going to try and turn inside on me. And now I lack the ability to stop him from turning very easily. Even from here or here, I can control him tight, turn, I'm going to pinch my knees together, keeping me in position. If I don't want to stay here, I can kick one foot off, dismount, I can go to a single leg ride, pull it out all together, try and break him down. So, got one hook in, but he's stubborn and he won't let me get my other hook in. So, I can always go back to my crab ride, get under his ankles here. Now I'm in a good position, get my one-on-one. If I do want to turn over, I can go ahead and control him with this, his ankle, go in my double leg ride. Another great ride, similar to the double grapevine or double leg ride, is a figure 4 body lock. It's illegal in amateur wrestling and for good reason. Slide our leg across his waist, and right here, actually, I've got it across his diaphragm level. From here, I will pull my foot in and bring my knee across and lock down, taking a lot of the air out of my opponent. You can also secure it deeper here, across his stomach, same thing, go into it, breaking him down, driving the air out of him. And a setup that some people may be familiar with is one that Ivan Salaberry used in UFC against Tony Fricklin. And that was, he broke him down and slid his leg across while he had him flat on his back. Another great ride from behind, I like to call the ankle ride. I've also heard it referred to by as a ball and chain ride by Billy Wicks, but I've always known it as just an ankle ride, so that's how we'll refer to it here. So I'm behind my opponent, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hook is near ankle. My referee's position, I like to bump forward with my knee, which clears his ankle from his hip, which will allow me to insert my leg under his ankle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick my heel up and take my heel and circle it right through and under, and I'm going to sit back on the ankle, pinching it between my leg here, and I can stay in a spiral ride, control, or just grab a tight waist here, a one-on-one, or behind the tricep, either way. Now I'm in tight on his ankle. Now if he wants to go ahead and try and roll with a Victor roll here, to take my ankle, take my leg, go ahead. He's going to have a lot of trouble because I've got his ankle pinned. And even as he rolls, tucks his head and rolls open up, I can open his leg up and work to pass through his guard, because I've got this ankle isolated. But the really great part about the ankle ride is if he tries to get to his feet, he's going to have that pretty difficult as well, because his foot is stuck to the mat. And it also gives me a lot of opportunity to attack for a toe hold right in here, reverse toe hold, or to sit here and just punch and hit and keep him locked down. Key points on the ankle ride are clearing his hip from his butt to enter. Using my knee to kick him forward. Now I use my heel to drive across the ground, scrape it underneath, and hook his leg to me. And that's okay. I can use this also to break him down with that motion, just like that Iowa ride we did earlier. Pumping his hip forward, using the heel inside, and now, if I trap it here, that's okay, but it's great when I can get it as deep all the way to the right pinch inside my knee and my calf. Sitting directly on the ankle. I don't want to sit high here. I want to sit back on the ankle bone and joint. This also is our best fulcrum for taking a toe hold and for keeping him from being able to rotate when he either tries to roll through with my leg or stand up. The only thing he's likely to do is kick over and roll to his back. And from here, that's when we're anticipating, and we're going to work to pass through his guard. The ankle ride is a great position. It gives us a lot of options for submission and control. A nice breakdown from the ankle ride is we can use his ankle by pulling it away from his body to take him down. And or, if he gets caught, I can submit him from right here, putting pressure on the side of the knee. What we're really trying to do is I can either grab across his hips here, or use a near side tight waist. They're just control points, so it's really not a make or break decision on your part. I'm going to circle my hips. I'm going to pull my heel out and away and back behind me as I turn. That's going to put him on the mat with his shoulder on the floor. From here, I can still go into my toe hold if I want to. Or I can just transition from here and work to pass. Now I'm in side control. I go to my head and arm. I can just underhook, sit. But either way, I've now got all these options because I've broken him down onto his side. Hook, near side tight waist, or reach across, control the hip, control the ankle, kick, and here I am. His knee is bent right now, which keeps it at an awkward angle and also makes it so he's unable to use much strength against it. Try and straighten your leg. It's really difficult for him because his leg's not just bent, but it's also taken out of line. His leg right now is it's bent, but it's also, his heel is flaring towards the outside of his hip, which is an unnatural position for your body to be in, and is really not that far away from a submission. It's also this disabling and taking his body out of good posture and good mechanical movement that allows us to be able to go off the toe hold so well. And it also is what helps us to break him down. Another great breakdown from the ankle ride. Once we're in tight, I'm going to hip into his hip, and I'm going to reach back and grab the top of his toes. Here. This is going to be our lever. As we're knocking his hips forward, we're going to try and rotate his heel above his hip, above his head, and his knee is going to follow. That's going to flatten him out for us. I like to reach across and put my hip weight across his, put my weight across his hips here. You can also reach inside the leg, and this is a nice pry position right here with your arm. Hook, drive, and now we've got this leg up. I can lock it in by bringing my leg underneath and figure fouring, pinching my knees tight. Keeping his leg here, I'll reach up, grab my thigh, and now I'm exactly where I want to be. Got it nice and flat, I can reach up for a toe hold here, just drive it down, a reverse toe hold, or I can finish my toe hold by simply grabbing here and reaching my own ankle and kicking. All these things are there because of how I have disabled the use of his leg right here, and because I have his body flat on the mat. Go ahead and try and build your base. It's going to be very difficult because he's really working with only one leg right now. This is a nice secure position. We can't do a lot of striking from here, but it gives us a lot of great submission opportunities. And if you wanted to work your leg ride stuff, your single leg ride is easily inserted. Bump, hook, reach, pry. You can also, another helpful aspect is to use your knee on his thigh to try and drive his knee across the mat and into your hand, which is lifting the leg. Here I am, I can just simply pinch and lock, and I'm good to go. I'm going to show you some examples of posturing.
Oops.
Classic staple, and one of the rides is going to give you probably the most amount of submissions from side control. Now, a lot of people may think that they understand side control and are used to elbow, you got to underhook, control the head, knees up and tight. Now, Rob's not going to be able to move all that easily. Go ahead and shrimp around. So I've got him here, but does this really suck? Not too bad, is it? No. Okay, let's say I put a shoulder on you. I mean, it's a little bit, but at the same time, can you breathe? Yeah. He's just okay. I don't like this side control. I mean, it's okay if you're gonna transition from here, and sometimes it's just where you end up. But here's how I'm gonna teach you how to side control. I like to keep my knee up and inside the armpit here. My back leg, however, I'm gonna put my hip on the mat. And now I'm going to drive my hip bone or my rib cage into his rib cage. And I'm going to lift with this arm. If I want to add more pressure, I'll pick my knee up off the floor and get my knees off the mat, my hips in. Now how's that, Rob?
It sucks.
Exactly. I'm hurting my opponent while he's underneath me and I'm taking his air away. If I want to make it even worse, I'll lift his head. I can drop the forearm across the throat and ride. Do a power half ride. Either way, doesn't matter what position I end up in, I want to trap this arm and I want to ride my hips into him. Now, one thing someone might point out is, well, what if he starts circling and tries to catch my leg back here and pull me into half guard? So go ahead and try and turn the circle and pull my leg in. Okay, that's a possibility. But the way we prevent that from happening is as he goes to circle, we circle his head. He comes forward a leg, we circle his head, we stay in position. If anything, we might even try and make it tighter. Transition to a top wrist lock, straight arm lock, whatever. Or just simply sit here and ride. Hip on the mat, hip into him, and go back to my side control. Again, hips down, putting pressure on his body. When I want to transfer to a submission, I might just simply one knee up, transfer my other knee up. But either way, I'm always keeping one hip down on my opponent. And this principle is the secret behind pinning, keeping my hip pressure on top of my opponent. And with submission wrestling, I'm using it to not only pin my guy on the mat, but I'm also using it to cause discomfort and to take his air away. Here's a variation off of the side control. I'm going to use a far underhook, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride my elbow across and onto his rib cage, pinching tight. And I don't want to just pull it in. I want to try and fold this elbow as tight underneath across his rib cage as I can. I want it completely perpendicular across to his body. And my elbow is going to drive in deep while I use this hook on his shoulder here to create a lever action. So I'm pulling here and levering into his chest there. I'm going to get on my toes, drive my hips behind it, and I'm going to put my body weight right onto my elbow. I can add a little more pressure by pulling up here, locking down. Pull his head up. In this ride, I can transition over his head into my double wrist lock, my crooked head scissor, a straight leg scissor, whatever I want to do. But with this underhook, it gives me a lot of options to move and hit and knee the face, stomp the face from here. Boom, whatever I want to do. I've got a nice secure ride here. And really, the only thing I'm controlling him with is this underhook and my hip pressure. If he goes to recover guard, all I'm going to do is continue to circle, maybe even shove his head on the mat, recover, move. I can throw a power half on and drive my elbow and forearm into his throat. It's a high pressure ride because I'm creating a fulcrum with my elbow and using his tricep and shoulder as a leverage point. Here we go. It's just like I'm trying to pry his shoulder right off his body. Another variation of side control, I just call it side riding. So I'm just really riding towards his head. I have an underhook here, and I have an underhook here. And all I'm going to do is wrap just like in a head and arm position and sit. I can put weight on him, butt off the floor, or I can sit tight, catch the head, and stay tight into his body and his armpit, and keep him locked up here while I work for a submission here. I can transfer forearm on the throat. The other thing that I really like about this ride a lot is that it's easy to hit from. Because my chest is opened up, I've got all this space to strike or to change direction as I strike, throw elbows, choke. It gives me a lot of opportunities. You can use this to throw a knee strike from. I think of it, I use it most often as a striking position with MMA. Well, for submission wrestling, you know, I can sit here, his elbow can be down, and here I am. I'm waiting here, and I'm looking to do a transition. I might put his elbow on his chest, reach through, grab my reverse head and arm. I've got options, but it's a riding position. I can pin him here, but I can also just wait, transition, or strike. Key to holding this position is going to be our underhook and getting under his elbow. Now that I'm tight inside his armpit, I like to hook the head or hook the arm and staying nice and tight. Once I'm under here, I can also lift this elbow up and just sit. Another riding position from the side, we can call this like a side saddle. Basically, a lot of times you're going to end up into here off of a guard pass, trying to get past his scissor. Common would be a hook shot. From here, it's really not a position that you're going to want to stay in, but it's certainly one that you can buy yourself some time, to transition to the places that you do want to be. So, reach between the legs, get under the crook, I'm going to lift him up. Keeping his feet off the mat takes away his ability to bridge. If his feet are on the floor, he can bridge. Start kicking, pushing, or cross face, take me over. I'm going to keep my head tight and his legs high. Right here. From here, I'm going to transition, bring my elbows across, try to get under his head, and do a better side control position. This position is going to secure us in a good tight position so that we can move on to the positions that we want to be in. Here's our classic mount. The basic theory about here is mount, at least in this mount, it's a riding position. It is not a pinning predicament, so to speak, because I don't have enough control points to truly keep him flat on the mat. There are other positions, variations of mount I can use, but our standard mount position is truly used more for striking and transitioning. So from here, I'll sit high, I'll sit onto his stomach right here, and I'll use it to hip. Bing, bing. I can also use it, go into my top wrist lock, pillow V, whatever is available. But truly, I'm just going to ride from here. He's going to try and buck me off and escape, so that might put me into my knee ride position from there. Or he bucks, well, now I'm into high mount. Bing, bing, bing. Key points about mount is sitting low with your hips, pinching your knees tight, and keeping your hands aware and in front of you. So if I try to buck me one direction or the other, I can post, but also I can always push and post off so that I can clear my body to a different position depending on how he rolls. This will also, we pay attention to our hip pressure. If he tries to turn all the way over, that's how I'm going to allow him to turn all the way over and give me his back without rolling me through as well. The next position I'm going to show you is a low mount with a double grapevine. Best way to secure this one is first, I like to at least get one underhook and the head. From here, I'm going to stretch my legs out, take the tips of my toes, and I'm going to wrap them inside onto his ankle and stretch him out. Hips go straight into his diaphragm, and I lift. I want to take his air out of him, I want to make him tired, but this is a lockdown position. This is a pin. So if Rob's trying to escape, I can keep him flat on the mat here and pin exactly where I want him to be. You can also reach in your back pocket, get a double underhook, and pinch his elbows together. I can grab my wrist, I can grab his elbows, I can grab my own elbows. Now I've got his hands trapped. It's going to be hard for him to bridge or turn very easily right here. And if he does bridge or turn, go ahead. So you get one hook out, turn. Now I have an arm trapped already. Go right into my arm bar. Low mount is a pinning lockdown position. Underhook, around the neck, under, and drive my heels through, lock my toes on the inside, hips down. This is your low mount. The last mount variation we're going to go over is our high mount. This is the easiest one to secure our armbar from mount, and it's also a great one to strike from. So, the way we're going to secure ourselves into our high mount, we can start from low mount with a double grapevine, or we can just go from our standard mount here. First thing I want to do is I want to get under his elbows and into his armpits. So, I'll either come here, try to flare his armpits forward, or if I have low mount, I'll try to go in my back pocket to the floor and under. Now it's key because once I get his elbows up and above his head, that's when I'm going to post and slide my knees all the way into, and as high as I can, into his armpits and pinch. From here, I can hit, submit, or go into my arm lock. The key point of high mount is to pin his shoulders and his arms up. Often we won't get that high, but we will get at least to this position. From here, shove the elbows forward, get one step higher, or pick an arm, crank it across, underhook, now go into my arm lock. High mount is under the elbows, into the armpits. It's also a great position to strike from. Here's a nice mount variation called the S or the Z mount. So when we think of mount, knees forward, everything sort of parallel and in line with our opponent's body. But for the S mount or Z mount, what we're going to do is we're going to get under one elbow. For right now, I'm going to get under this elbow. And what our goal is, by getting under this elbow, we're going to open up this shoulder and we're going to block it off with the same side arm. And the easiest way to do that is to usually go opposite, or same arm to same arm, reaching across. Grab his tricep like in an arm drag, pull it across, turn, and sit. And here we are. I'll bring my leg up and under, and back. You could also call this the manji mount because it looks somewhat similar to the manji symbol in Buddhism. So, from here, the really important part about this is I am driving my weight onto my opponent's chest, but I am staying under this shoulder. By trapping this shoulder, and the main reason usually for going to this position is to attack for the arm bar, the cross arm lock. But you have options with top wrist lock from here, straight gooseneck, you can hit. It's also, one way to think about it is if he feels and knows this position, certainly even if he doesn't, but he's familiar with being in a bad spot to get armbarred, he's going to react. He's going to think about defending the armbar so much that I'm sure he's going to give something else up. Like right now, if he's got this arm trapped not to get armbarred, that's when we're going to go into like a top wrist lock or something like that. Or he might force his arm down so hard. Go ahead, get the elbow to the floor. But now pulls himself right into a triangle on top and or on lock. Getting behind the shoulder and the elbow. Coasting once we have his arm across his body. And then sliding this knee up and tight and this heel through. Behind his other shoulder. From here, it's a simple matter. Putting the arm over, we're going to our arm lock. or pinching our knee and our leg together and securing our mount by underhooking here, taking a brace, or you can pull up on his head and sit. This is the S or Z mount. Next position we're going to go over is north-south, also called Yokoshio Gatame. I've heard it referred to a numerical description, but we're not going to go into that. So, basic principle of this is same with any ride, and that is hips down. But I'm going to show you some variations that are going to improve on your ability to ride with this and to also make your partner's time underneath you as uncomfortable as possible, and that's just not because you're not wearing a cup. So, first thing is head center of the chest. Basic position, I'll take one arm over, one arm under, and I can sit here, drop my belly on his stomach. This is fine. Double arm over, I can hook his arms here. I can drop my elbows tight into his shoulders here, on my toes. These are all basic variations. I can go head and arm here and sit. But what I'm going to show you is how I like to use the hips on the chin and the face to keep his head pinned in position and give him less opportunity and availability to use a bridge to try and get out of there, and also just make life suck in general. So take my hip bone, I'm going to use it to turn his face and drop my pressure right here. And to do that, all I'll do is slide off to the side, drop my hip down, bring it over, and sit. Now from here, I'll keep one arm under an underhook here and onto his stomach, or I can go to the other side and do so. I can grab both, or I'll just trap both arms tight to the side. That's fine. My hip bone goes on the face. If he bridges, it's fine. I'll just keep rolling back over it. I can get the other side. Stay here. I can overhook the arm, sit, and hook my thigh and drop my hip. This is a very tight position. On the far side here, I'll go under his body, hook my thigh, and settle. You put my knee on the ground, put my knee up. Now I'm driving my hip bone right into the side of his face, keeping his head in. Basic premise of this technique is what we're trying to do is keep him flat on his back. This is a pinning predicament. You can transition from here, of course, as with any position, but really, I want to try and keep him flat. I see a lot of people tuck the arms up, sitting in here. Rob, does this bother you at all?
No.
You know that I have a better position, but it's not panicking you, is it?
Nope.
Okay, so I don't want that. I don't want him comfortable one bit. So, drop that hip bone right on the face. Now, Rob, how's this?
No.
You want to get out of there, don't you?
Yeah.
But you can't because of the film. Your camera's rolling right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, other things I can do is to drop a forearm across his face and settle. Now this doesn't give me as much of a pinning opportunity, but it will make my opponent move. So go ahead and escape. And that just put me somewhere else I wanted to be. Inside, elbows tight, hip on his face. And that's our north-south control. So, next position we're going to go over, front headlock, and basically I'm just going to refer to most of this as a front headlock and front head control position. The basic and what I consider the starting point for the front head control positions is the front headlock. Come around the face here, and I'm actually going to put palm down. Turn this way a little bit. Palm up. This one's going to come, this one's going to go palm down. My other arm is going to come around the outside. I'm going to use the knife edge of my hand and my wrist to chop into his tricep, and it's gonna go palm up. I'm gonna take an Olympic or gable grip, pinch it across, tuck my head tight, and on my toes. From here, I have a great control point. If he tries to stand up, here, dragging him around, I can drop a knee, pull him in. I can secure here, get back, go to my spiral ride, wherever I want to go. But because of the control point I have on his neck and his head, this is, I have a great ability to steer where he is trying to go and to keep him from being able to get a significant hold of my leg or my arm, or being able to really transition very effectively at all. Dave Schultz, Mark Coleman, Reese Andy, all guys possessing incredible front headlocks. And I can tell you from wrestling with Reese and Mark Coleman that you get under that thing and it's just somewhere you don't want to be. There's not very many options for you. So, arm crossed, through to the armpit, palm down, outside arm. Important, I'm going to chop this arm and I want it across his face. From here, not only is it choking him a bit, but it locks everything together and it pinches his neck and his arm tight, makes it uncomfortable. It also puts a lot of pressure on this whole entire area, making it easier for me to control. Once I'm in there, I'm going to pinch my elbows tight as I can get them together and suck it off to the side, pull it in even tighter yet. I want there to be as little space between here as possible, between his arm and his head, and between his head and arm, and the grip between my grip and his body. Cross, palm down, palm up, chop, suck it in. My head's gonna come down to help lock that shoulder in and keep it, keep behind the shoulder and to keep him from sucker dragging, and also to keep his elbow across his face. And I'm just gonna settle, drive my shoulder into his head, and here we go. We're in our front headlock. Variations from here, I can grab the front headlock and an underhook, giving me a half hatch or a cow catcher position. I can control from here and use it to turn. I can also use it to set up into different arm locks or whatever may have you. I can also use it to keep him from getting into my leg or to take him off of a single leg. I'll come across, controlling the chin here, or I also like to stick my blade of my wrist under his neck and then reach for the chin, putting a bit of a choke on at the same time. It's important, no matter what position I take with the front head series, that I keep my shoulders up over his neck and not too high on his chest. If I'm up here, my weight is on top of his body, which isn't really that bothersome to him, and it allows him to get through into my legs. So I have a front headlock, but I don't really have great control on him. Now he's got a single, now he's going to turn me over, or sit out, take my back. If I stay on his neck, now if he tries to sit out, I've got him locked down. I've got control of his neck. It's going to be hard for him to do that. He's trying to grab my legs. I can keep him back. I'm keeping him at arm's length. Another control point, do is a chest squeeze. And even though we're going double over and inside his armpits, I'm going to grab either a wrist control lock, or I can grab a gable or Olympic grip, or I can grab a waving grip. Personally, I like to grab my wrist and pull it in as tight as I can, or a gable grip or Olympic grip. So, lock up, hard. I'm gonna squeeze my elbows together and try to pull my grip right through the center of his chest. My hips are back and over his neck, securing here. So if he tries to sit out, I'm putting pressure on his elbows, not letting him flare through. And if he does manage to try and sit out, I can let go, take a suck him back, and attack from there. What you don't want to do is end up over his chest here. Over I go, and there's not really a whole lot I can do to stop it. Chest squeeze, hips down. Front headlock, pinch, across, tight. Yep. Head tight to the shoulder, grip across, arm tight across, off my toes, off my knees, on my toes. Although, you know what, it's okay to go to your knee in a front headlock position sometimes, but understand that when you're here, you're not sitting here. This does me no good. One knee up, one knee driving in, one foot driving in. That's okay. But just sitting on both knees, it's no good. Last one, front quarter position. Hand on top of the neck, arm reaches through, high on the elbow, grabs your own wrist. And now I load my weight again on his neck and face and keeping him pinned to the floor. From here, he's not going to be able to get into any shots or singles, any leg catches, and have a good control point. You can use it to turn him over. Oop. I might hit an arm if I want. But again, the same principle applies. Pressure on the neck, sticking the head in the floor, and staying behind the front of his shoulders. Head on the floor, high into the armpit, up to the elbow. Grab my wrist, stay on his neck. Hips down, toes on off the ground. Toes into the ground, driving. And here I am. That's the front quarter Nelson. One of the key principles in catch wrestling about riding and pinning and positioning is that nobody gets a free ride on bottom. And that means not only are we going to continue to control and hold a dominant position, we're also going to induce pain into our opponents by using our elbows, our wrists, knuckles, forehead, chin, knees, shins, pretty much any hard part of your body you can think of to cause suffering, emotional damage, whatever you want to call it, to the guy that's underneath of you. We don't want him to be able to relax at any moment. And I can speak from experience that I've had people tap out in training just from being put in a really painless predicament. Or a painful predicament. See, I've had too much pain induced on me. Other things that we want to keep in mind is also that we're always going to apply pressure to the guy that we're riding on. We want to take his spirit, his will, and his energy from him as we're on top. I don't think it does you much good to get on top and just be content. Certainly, it's going to be much better served if you can not only induce pain, cause damage to your opponent with your ride, but at the same time, if you're able to take his conditioning and his cardio away by collapsing his lungs, making it hard for him to breathe, covering his mouth, suffocating him, doing all and any and all of these things in combination is going to make him panic, tense up, use more energy than he would normally, throw himself, force things, roll through to positions that he wouldn't normally do because he just didn't want to be there anymore. All these things are going to get reactions out of your opponents, and they're also going to cause him to tire and expire easier. And when he's done, when he's tired and his will is broke, that's when you're going to have your way with him. From here, we're going to do a basic position flow drill that should help you memorize the positions and get a feel for moving in between position to position. So we'll start off real simply. Elbow inside the guard, hands on the hips. We're going to push one knee down, reach back, underhook an ankle, turn the hip over. From here, right into a riding position, lifting the legs up high. We're going to bring our far side arm over, switch our hips, parallel the mat, bring our bottom leg through, hip heisting, bring our top elbow back across, and bring our right forearm into an underhook, to the side riding position. We're gonna get under his elbow, lifting it up by the wrist, or I can reach and pick the elbow here. From here, slide our hip deep into the shoulder and into the armpit. Here we are. Nice another side, high side riding position. Turn our hip and knee over by hip heisting and bringing our bottom leg through, turning our hip down. From here, we're going to bring our knee up tight to his head, put our back leg down, take our underhook. Here we have our side control hold. If you want to, you can go ahead, grab the head as well. Now, here, we'll slide our arm off, hook the back of the tricep, post, hip heist towards his legs. From here, we'll open his leg up, slide our knee on top, in the back pocket, grapevine, low mount. Our right arm goes in our back pocket, hooks under the elbows, high mount. From here, simply kick off. Now we're in side control again. Kick over, hook the head, lock. Now, hip, control, lift legs, and now let him cover guard. Break the guard open, knee down, behind the ankle, throw by, control. Lift, arm comes over, hip height, hips parallel. Now, underhook, hips facing his head. Lift or pick, under his armpit, high and tight. Cross the elbow. Here we are, side control. Get the arm across, grab the tricep, bring your hips away back here, open, knee over, double grapevine, low mount. Reach, back pocket, elbows, high mount, kick off, high side ride, turn over, side control. Open, open, let him recover guard. Start all over again. That's position flow 1. Position flow 2. We're going to start in the side riding position. Under the elbow. Turn our hips over. Now, we're in our side control position. We're going to hook. Hook his hip. Turn our hips over. Now we're open to take the mount. Come back. Hip heist again. From here, I'm going to snake through his armpit, the head and arm position. From here, put the arm across, catch, lift, sweep my elbow back on the far side of his body, turn it over, north-south position. Now, sit back. Reverse head and arm. Now I want to get to the other side. So, go back to north-south, except now, I have the other arm down. Now, move the arm through, sit, switch, head and arm. Up, arm across, up, keep his elbow tight, turn, and hook his head, side control. Turn toward his body, side control facing his legs. Then side right. Start again. Position flow 2. Start in side control, side righting. Pick the elbow, turn it over. Here we are, side control. Hook the arm, hook the hip, sit back. Side control, side righting, facing the legs. Sit back, snake the arm under the armpit, the head and arm. Tuck the arm up, across, lift. Bring the arm across his head. Your elbow is going to sweep across his chest, down to his armpit as you turn your hips over. North, south. Now from here, come back. Reverse head and arm. Now we want to take the north, south from here. Around the leg here. Reverse head and arm. Back south. And now we want to go back to our head and arm position. So clear the arm. Step over. And through. Come back, underhook the far side arm, and you hip over, side control. Reach across, block the hip, side righting facing the legs, arm on the other side, underhook, switch, side control facing the head, side righting facing the head, side righting, turn it over, side control position. Hook the tricep, around, block the hip. Turn our hips towards his leg, side righting facing the legs. Hook the tricep back again. Side righting facing the head. Snake our arm through. Head and arm. The arm across. Head and arm. Now, hook it, turn it over. Now, reverse head and arm. On the north south. Reverse head and arm. Head and arm. Head and arm. Side control facing the hip. Side righting facing the head. This is position flow 2. Position flow 3. From a back control position. Start. Spiral ride. Spiral ride. Frog ride. Opposite spiral ride. Come forward. Single leg ride. Double leg ride. Kick our foot out. Single leg ride on the other side. Take our leg out. From headlock. Chest squeeze. Opposite front headlock. Clear that. Back to your spiral ride. Spiral ride. Frog ride. Opposite spiral ride. Leg ride. Double leg ride. Leg ride the other side. Other leg. Front headlock. Chest squeeze. other front headlock. Pass the arm by, back to spiral, and keep going. Oh!